last night I was able to watch the first 4 episodes of The Acolyte, so let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comments section. Let me know your excitement level for The Acolyte, and once you've seen it, what did you think about it? This will be a spoiler-free review, so if you want to talk spoilers down below in the comments section, just put a spoiler warning up. So as for me, I went into The Acolyte with a lot of different conflicting feelings, and a lot of that came from the simple fact that I've wanted Star Wars to tell stories in different time periods. We don't need to make everything about the fall of the Jedi, rise of the Empire, fall of the Empire, aftermath of the Empire. We've got a whole galaxy, there's thousands of years of the Jedi, and we keep looking at the time period of their destruction and the aftermath of that. So, The Acolyte is the first time we're seeing a show set when things were good, theoretically speaking. I'm all for it. But the flip side to all of that, Disney's track record with these shows is inconsistent, to say the least. A lot of the chatter statements that they made about the show itself seemed like, what are we doing? Like, what is the focus here? Why are we doing this with Star Wars? And then even in the trailers themselves, when we're doing a show that's supposed to be showing the Jedi in their prime before they fell apart, and you start talking about how the Jedi are the liars and they're not actually the good guys.
This is about power and who is allowed to use it.
That seems to invalidate the whole purpose of the show. We've already seen the Jedi didn't actually have it all together. That's actually kind of all we have ever seen, is the Jedi don't really have it all together. You watch the prequels and you watch them collapse. You watch Clone Wars, you see some of the hypocrisy in there. And so then, once again, being like, but what if the Jedi actually aren't as good as we thought they were? Right, we've been doing that. We've been exploring that for a long time now. And I was hoping that we could just see the Jedi in their prime, doing their thing, not deconstructing them and telling us why they're actually awful. So a lot of mixed feelings going into it. What I actually think about it? Let's get started with the good. And right off the bat, the show was better than I feared. That, in particular, the murder mystery and the backstory leading to these assassinations, I think is pretty effective in the show, where it sets up a scenario that a Jedi gets killed, and you're trying to figure out what's the motivation behind all of this. What's the backstory on everything? And you kind of have a set of characters that have a complicated backstory that tie back to certain events, and you're slowly kind of unwinding the whole thing, figuring out everything that kind of went on with it, with each of these characters, their perspective on what happened, and you're not really sure even if what you're seeing is from an unreliable narrator or if someone's being lied to you, what's the truth. And so it does a pretty effective job of building out the intrigue surrounding the backstory of our lead character and this murder mystery that's taking place. And just in general, doing a Star Wars story that is using a murder mystery as the foundation of its plot is interesting. A Star Wars story that's a mystery. That's new. That's fresh. That's different. Cool. Let's do it. And you kind of had that in Attack of the Clones, but not really, not in the same sense at all. And so this is a much more effective version of it. Other thing a lot of people are talking about with this show is the fight choreography, and it's pulling in a bunch of martial arts, Hong Kong martial arts choreography into it, and not just doing lightsaber battles, but having actual fight choreography in it. A lot of the early reactions were like, it's incredible, it's amazing, it's mind-blowing. I mean, it's not any of that. But they're actually putting effort and work into having real choreography. They're pulling influences from cool stuff. And so compared to most choreography these days, it's quite well done. If you've actually watched the work of Yuen Wu-Ping or Jet Li from the 90s, this all of a sudden is not blowing your mind because you saw it done better, faster, cooler 30 years ago. But there actually is good choreography here, and they do interesting things with it and bring the Force into it, which provides some new opportunities. Also makes it very reminiscent of The Matrix, which also was this movie 25 years ago that was heavily influenced by, and actually Yuan Wu-Ping actually did the choreography for it, but incorporating that with kind of action sci-fi. And so you get that similar vibe here of this Hollywoodized version of what Hong Kong was doing in the 90s. Another nice touch, they actually built out sets, and so it feels a lot more lived in. It feels like real environments. It doesn't feel claustrophobic. You feel like you're going to places. So some of the stuff where they were using that void technology with the big screen around them made things feel a little bit smaller than they actually were. And this, once again, has a bit of a scope, a size to it, a believability, veracity to everything that you're touching, which nice touches. And then to the original thing about this show, which was intriguing to me, we are going to a time period when the Jedi weren't collapsing. So you're getting to see the Jedi in action. You're seeing how different people perceived of them, what the world of Star Wars looked like when it wasn't in the middle of these Star Wars. You're seeing it when there was order to everything and the different perspectives on that. And that's kind of a nice touch to finally get to see that. So just in general, you have a Star Wars show which is familiar enough in that we're following the Jedi around, we have lightsabers, the Force, but also we're bringing in a new genre as it's a murder mystery. We've got some choreography that's more interesting than what we've seen recently, and we're seeing a time period we haven't seen before, so it's something fresh and new with Star Wars. But there's plenty of things here I wasn't as crazy about. Let's move on to the bad. And the big thing that comes to mind here is, simply put, if we're going to tell a story about the Jedi when they were in full force, why would you choose to tell that story and make a central tenet of your show the idea that, the Jedi actually weren't all that good? So you can just watch the trailers, and right there in the trailers, they talk about how the Jedi are a lie, how the Jedi are about controlling power, and all of this stuff that's this, deconstruction of the Jedi, anti-institution that Disney Star Wars has been playing around with for years and years and years now. And they've just made it sound like this is like this super fresh new idea, but they keep doing this. Luke Skywalker said all of this in The Last Jedi. And they keep, and we've explored this with Ahsoka, and the Clone Wars showed the hypocrisy. So you finally do a show set 100 years before they fell apart, and instead of just letting the Jedi be the heroes and show them as the Guardians of the Peace, we have to present it as like, well, are they really the Guardians of the Peace? What is their definition of peace? What's the cost of peace? What are they doing to families? What are they doing to children? How is it that they're the ones that have a monopoly on the Force?
This is about power and who is allowed to use it.
Can we not just let our heroes be heroes and our mythological good guys be good guys? Like, why does it always have to go back to the Jedi are actually the bad guys? So as you go throughout the season, there is this mystery about what happened in the past. Clearly, someone feels wronged by the Jedi and are trying to make them pay for it. In the first 4 episodes, it really toes the line between making the point that the Jedi did something very wrong, and therefore this person is justified in what they're doing, and making it seem like this person is just distorted by the dark side. And they're driven by someone that's influencing them to see them as the bad guys. In the first 4 episodes, it kind of goes back and forth. There's some unreliable narrator type situations where you're hearing perspectives. They do some flashbacks, some extensive flashbacks in the first 4 episodes. So you see things in the past, but you only see specific events of the past. And there's things that happen off screen that maybe in the back half of the season they'll say more and more. But it keeps doing this back and forth between, oh man, the Jedi must have done something really bad. And then they show you and you go, maybe it wasn't so bad. And then they reveal something else where you're like, well, what are they still hiding from me? And some of that's what makes the mystery effective. And some of that goes back to that idea of like, why can't the Jedi just be heroes? Why does it feel like Disney Star Wars hates the Jedi? Back 30 years ago, growing up, Jedi were the good guys, the guardians of the peace. Wow, Luke's gonna be a Jedi. They're awesome. If only we had the Jedi to tear down this evil government. And then the whole journey of the last 10 years seems to be, I mean, obviously the Jedi sucked because they were like, this tyrannical institution that were monopolizing the Force. They're the bad guys. Why? Why are we doing this? What is the idea here? Why can't we just, like, we're exploring the Jedi, let them be heroes. Other kind of issue in here is inherently Jedi can be very flat characters. They're, space monks with a deadly skill set, but they don't have attachments and not supposed to have these big emotions. And so inherently, they can come off very stiff as characters. You saw this in the prequels at times, and then I think you see that here as well. And so you have to find a way to like move in a non-Jedi character that can kind of bring some life to it. And thus far, this show hasn't done that yet. And so just a lot of these kind of stiff monk characters doing a murder investigation. And you wish there was a little bit more life to some of them. The best one is Sol, who is kind of in the center of this mystery and the investigation, and we don't really know what happened. And we're trying to figure out exactly why, what did the Jedi do that was so wrong? And we don't know what that is. And you see, you believe him. You believe that he feels deeply about what took place and about these characters and these events. And there's a sincerity and an honesty to him. So you appreciate that. Some of the other ones, like Yord, the guy that, if you've seen this clip going viral of this guy saying, and then Anakin blew up the Death Star. That character in the show is pretty insufferable. Like he's like a jerk Jedi that doesn't have too many moments where he does anything endearing or likable. He's just rule follower guy that's unpleasant. And there's a lot of that. Just that distance when you have the Jedi that aren't supposed to have these attachments, and with the nature of the plot line, it just makes them feel just distant and disconnected because they're supposed to feel that way. And when that's your lead set of characters, it's frustrating. You lose something because of that. Real quick, before I give you my final thoughts, be sure to join me down below in the comment section. Also, I have done a ton of Star Wars content, so you can check that out right up here when the video's over. Overall, it did its job of hooking me. When the 4th episode ended, I was like, oh crap, I gotta wait a month until the next one. It's effective at building intrigue and raising questions that you want answers to. Now, characters, not as interesting as I'd hoped, and I really hope it doesn't just end on this note of Jedi bad because they're trying to control the Force. Really hope that's not what we linger on the entire time. I'll say this, if you're just burned out on Disney Star Wars, this probably isn't gonna be the show that brings you back. I'm sure you'll find everything that has been frustrating you about recent Star Wars, you'll find it here as well. If you've been enjoying Disney Star Wars enough, it is something fresh and different. Let me know what you thought down below. Check out my other Star Wars content right over here. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies and TV to